Welcome to the No Bull Political Arena with your hosts, Sophia Nelson, Bill O'Reilly, Brian Mistro, and TJ McCormick. It's real voices, raw politics, and no bullshit. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Political Arena. Thank you for joining us live. I've got both of my dear friends on here, both Michael Faulkner and Sophia Nelson. And this show, we're doing this special because Sophia wrote a book that is absolutely wonderful. And we're going to break down that book and we're going to talk about things that are in it today. But we're also going to talk about stuff that's not in it and to get her perspective because, she's just, I just think that what you wrote, Sophia, just really hit the nail on the head. So the book is called Redefining Freedom. Let me go ahead. I'm going to put a slide up real quick so everybody can see this. Now, this book is available on Amazon for sure, because I know that's where I got it. And I'm assuming
everywhere books are sold.
Everywhere books are sold. So it's Redefining Freedom. We'll show it again before the show's over. Sophia, very, very, very good job, and thanks for joining us today to talk about that. I have a lot of questions. I had to take out a whole lot of notes on this because there were so many quotes and pieces of it that I thought, wow, that's interesting. And I'm going to hit you up on some of those specifically, but let me just go ahead before I do and say, what inspired you to write this? Why right now? What inspired you to write this book right now?
Well, I think, first of all, thanks for having me. It's great to be back with the team. And Michael, thank you for joining us. It's always an honor when I get to be on with you. And what inspired me is the subtitle of the book, Bridging Divides and Renewing the American Promise at 250. And I dedicated the book to the next generation of Americans, those who are now our kids' age, nieces and nephews, millennials and younger. And, calling on them and charging them to understand that what they see right now in their body politic is not normal. It is not okay. It is not what we do in this country. It is not how we behave. And I also want to charge them and inspire them and encourage them that public service is still a noble calling, that being
Right.
involved in politics can be a good thing, and that we have had amazing leaders in this country, starting from George Washington all the way down to a guy like George Herbert Walker Bush, who I worked for, who was a World War II
Mm,
hero. There's video of him being shot down and plucked up out of the Japanese Sea, and
yeah, yeah.
just they don't make them like that anymore, but they do. And in this next generation, I want to encourage them to run for office, to be civically engaged, to vote, to register people to vote, to let their voices be heard, to not allow the baby boomers who are still running everything well into their 80s. The president of the United States is 80.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think that's okay, not because of ageism. Mitch McConnell is somewhere. None of us knows what shape he's in right now. United States Senator, you can't get a straightforward answer on whether the man's alive, not alive, okay, not okay. Rep. Tom Kean of New Jersey disappears for months, but he's doing stock trading, doesn't answer to his constituents, says he had depression and had to be treated, but votes against other people having that same treatment. My point to young people is this is not okay. This is not what the founders envisioned. And you can do something different because you still have the power of the people. And that's what I want them to take hold of.
You note in your book that you said something is broken in America. I mean, I think that's a quote. And you said freedom's broken. Uh, what did you mean by that? Something is broken in America and freedom's broken and the promise is broken. Tell us a little bit about that because that one struck me a little bit.
Well, I use the word something's amiss, right? That's a great word. Amiss. Something is it's strewn about. It's not okay. It's off. It's like we feel it. We all feel it, but you can't really put your finger on it, and things are different, and you want things to change, but you want them to change for the better. And when I say freedom is broken, that's not exactly right. It is. I have a piece out in Forbes right now entitled "The
Mm-hmm.
Freedom uh, Recession." Freedom recession. You know what an economic recession is, right?
Right.
A freedom recession is when we don't trust each other anymore. We don't respect
Mm,
each other
mm,
anymore. We aren't civil anymore. We don't believe in the power of our institutions and guardrails. We don't respect the rule of law anymore because all of our freedoms in this country hinge on us being not just about that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for ourselves, but understanding that our fellow citizens and our fellow human beings also have those same rights. And that whenever one of us loses their rights, all of us have our
Mm.
rights endangered. And so, this freedom recession, recessions you recover from, we will recover from it. I'm optimistic. But we're going to have to make some very dramatic changes once this president is out of office and we have a chance to catch our breath from the daily chaos. It's daily chaos. We're not used to that. You know, our system, gentlemen, is not built for what we're seeing right now. It's built on an honor system, a code of conduct where the branches respect each other, the powers are separated, they're enumerated, and the people always have the final say with the vote. Our system is not designed for what we've watched happen over the last 10 years, but in specific over the last several. And so that freedom recession, it's not that freedom is broken, it's that freedom is fragile. And as I say in the
mm.
book, it's glass, it's not granite.
Mm.
And so you
Yeah.
got to be real careful with it.
Sophia, I so look forward. I cannot wait. I have not read the book, but I'm looking forward to cruising it, not cruising it, but reading it and thoroughly getting into. But I love your ideas and I love what you're saying. I would disagree with this, and that is that this country, because I've been doing a deep dive into the whole 250 years. And there have been dark periods of time in our history before. In fact, there's a piece out. There's a Netflix series out called the American Experiment. I highly recommend it.
I've
But
started it.
yeah, it talks about the fact that, every generation has had to go back to the founding principles and commit itself afresh and anew once
Yep.
again. And it just does. Now, I agree with you. We've never seen this before.
Yeah.
Certainly in our lifetime. I mean, and we in recent history back as far as World War II, I mean, back for 100 years, we've never seen a head of state. We just never had a president like this one
Yeah.
now,
No.
who does not adhere to the rule of law and certainly doesn't seem to even agree with the Constitution many times. And so that could challenge and rattles all of our cages, but we have to come back to everything that you're saying. We have to come back to those principles, those founding principles, and redefine what it means. I've seen I one of the things that has struck me was how very violent our country has been over its 250 years
Mm.
history. And so this, there's a passage of scripture that says the kingdom of God, advances through violence, and
Mm.
you kind of, you look at that and you go, whoa, God, what are you saying? This is in us. Well, and the word violence is kind of could be misconstrued, but if you unpack it theologically, but for us, it's violence, like it means violence,
Mm-hmm.
guns,
Mm-hmm.
bullets, knives, weapons. And so I don't advocate violence, and I certainly believe the peaceful transfer of power is the bedrock of our Constitution and of our way of life and government and so forth and so on. And so I think we have to come back to the redefining freedom, as you, Sophia, exactly what you're saying. We've got to get back to understanding what it means, because if we are under the threat of violence, if we are under threat, if we are being threatened, if our very way of life is being threatened, then we are not free.
And
You know,
actually, you talk about that in your book a little bit too. You hint really close to that.
well, I do. Listen, Jefferson is one of my favorite founding fathers. He's a great Virginian. And of course, he's a complicated man. And I think that President Obama said it really well when he was being interviewed post his library about it. He's like, listen, I can look at George Washington and admire him. I can look at Thomas Jefferson or James Madison and I can admire the greatness of what they did. He said, but I can also see their human flaws as slave owners. And he said, those things don't have to be either or, they are both and. It's the contradiction of the American experiment, which, by the way, is the show that Michael's referencing. And one of my favorite Jefferson quotes is that the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. What is Jefferson saying? He's not advocating violence per se. What he's saying is every new generation has to refresh that tree of liberty. Coretta Scott King said it that freedom is never really won. It is won again and again and again in every new generation, which fits exactly what Michael's saying. And my premise of the book is things are pretty rough right now. We are definitely experiencing a once in a generation or two or three phenomenon that's not great. But it is also, as a woman of faith, a mirror. And that mirror is being held up to us right now to say, who are we and who do we want to be? Who are we going to be going forward? Because Providence helped to start this country. I'm not saying we're a theocracy. I'm not saying that we are a quote unquote Christian nation, although there are certainly tenets of Christianity and Judaism all throughout, whether it is on our currency or on the commandments that hang on the wall in the House of Representatives, part of prayer for our public sessions, whatever it is, we have those tenets. So faith is an integral part of this American experiment. But I think that we have lost our way in that we don't even demand of our leaders anymore to be moral and virtuous people, like James John Adams talked about, a moral and virtuous government. Not that men were angels, because we wouldn't need government if men were angels, right? Because they're checks. But I am still very optimistic about the shining city on a hill, and I believe she will come back. And I believe that we will have good presidents again. We will have great presidents again. But this is a moment at our 250th. All of us here are old enough to remember the bicentennial. I was in second grade. I don't know where you all were, but I remember us going to Valley Forge and we saw President Ford speak. And it was amazing. There were these wagon trains that came from all over, literally wagons. They drove wagons, like covered wagons from the Midwest. And Gerald Ford was a good man. You didn't have to be a Republican to like him, or, he came after Nixon. The country was tired and worn and weary. Whether or not he should have pardoned Nixon, I don't know. But at the end of the day, Ford was a good man. And people respected him, and he was a unifier, and he wasn't a divider. And I hope that's where we soon find ourselves once again.
I want to ask you about that too, because I'm gonna use a quote from your book. And actually, I in full disclosure, I did mention it to Michael before we started this show, but the quote really struck me about where we're at as a country and how we define our freedom and how others define it. We're seeing a movement in this country right now, both in a fascism side on the right and on a socialism side on the left. Michael and I have had this discussion, and we've had it on multiple programs, that there's a group of people that they don't this economy, and they'll blame it on this democracy, this capitalism. It's just not working for them. And so I'm going to quote you, and then I'd like to get your take, Sophia, because you said, a person who cannot meet their basic needs is not free. And that one, I wrote that one down because after reading your book, I kept coming back to that, and you're right. You're right. I think there's
I also talked about a person that can't afford their health care, or that can't, have shelter. We are the greatest, richest ever in the history of the world. The world just saw its first trillionaire. We got a lot of billionaires, a lot of them. And yet we know that when USAID funding was cut, that there are babies now around the world. The program was fantastic. Has been good. And that's not Bill talked about us, right? Why we were so extraordinary and so exceptional. And this thing about freedom, I want to really focus on what freedom is, because I think freedom is, again, an ever expanding just like the Constitution. It's a living, breathing document. We would have others, some of our other co-hosts on here would argue and disagree. And it was funny, I was hoping Lauren was on because the last time we did a show together, she was saying she's a young woman. She's only in her 30s. She's a millennial, a young millennial. And she said, I don't see the need for some of these civil rights programs, whatever, because that stuff doesn't exist anymore. And I wanted to break out laughing because she's young.
Yeah.
And she's also a young white woman. And I'm thinking to myself, young lady, you just have no clue. That's just not true. Do you not see what's going on around you? And
Right,
so
right.
freedom has bigger meanings than just how we understand it to be, like, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Those are three core tenets that Jefferson outlines in the Declaration. And they're right. But if I can't put food on my table, if I don't have a place to lay my head, if I don't have the ability to earn a living when I'm willing to work, when I want to work, when I am doing my best, then we got challenges. And the reason you're seeing Democratic socialists get elected in places like New York and Colorado, and you will see it in other places soon, is because what they're talking about is what I call the benevolent form of socialism. But you got to be careful when you get into socialism and communism because they look good on paper, but they're not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You know,
capitalism, give me a moment, the
yeah.
capitalism of the American dream is still the best system. The problem is it is terribly unequal and terribly difficult to achieve if you don't have all the things that you need to at least have a shot at it. So if you're in poverty, like I said, or if you
Mm.
can't eat, if you can't have a place to lay your head, it makes it very difficult to compete in a capitalist environment where it is survival of the fittest to a degree and the best person wins. I still think it's the best system, but we need to be clear that
Mm.
you're going to see more socialism creep up because people don't want to lose Social Security. They don't want to lose Medicare, and they shouldn't. They paid for it. Medicaid. These things have been a safety net from the FDR era. So we got to come up with more innovative ways. And I talk about in the book, as you know, Brian, that there are ways ahead of this that aren't too complicated for us to fix this thing. We just have to have the will to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned FDR. When you were talking about that, I was thinking about his four freedoms, the freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear.
Mhm.
And that was a major theme that allowed the greatest expanse, in government,
Mhm.
under FDR, and things that we consider normal now. And people were accusing then and saying, "Oh, we're headed down the path of socialism. We're headed down and that was an accusation. And certainly these are underpinnings now of our society and of the great wealth that we have.
Well, think about it like this. Teddy Roosevelt's presidential library opened up the other day. The president went out there, he opened up the library, and instead of being focused on arguably one of the great presidents on Mount Rushmore that we've ever had, and Teddy Roosevelt, a Medal of Honor winner, a Rough Rider, you talk about a guy that has a personal story. Loses his mother and his wife on the same day when he's a young man. He's got a young daughter.
Mm.
He's so depressed, he wants to just die and just kind of goes, rambles off and goes and lives in the jungles. And you would have thought it was over for him. This is the guy that talks about the credit belongs to the man in the arena. And this great president is dishonored on the day his presidential library opens by the sitting president who's talking about he's going to give himself and his sons a Medal of Honor. And he can't keep it off of himself. He can't ever be focused on, like, he's going to ruin July 4th tomorrow. I'm already prepared for it.
Mm.
There's going to be an awful speech. It's going to talk about the election was stolen and the algae in the Lincoln Memorial and the people vandalized it. We're in this place that is we're not in a good place. And so, as Brian said, you've got the far right fascism and the elitism that says, DEI is only good if it's for white males, even if they're qualified or not. Everybody else isn't qualified and you should never look at them. And then you look at the billionaire class and you look at what they're doing. And then you look at the far left extreme of the socialists that we just talked about, who are saying, like Mandami, who is wildly popular because he's actually getting stuff done. Whether or not we like it in Virginia or Connecticut or wherever you live doesn't matter. The people of New York, the regular working people, they like it because they feel like they're getting screwed. Every day, the working man in this country feels like I don't ever catch a break. Nobody gives a damn about me. Affordability matters to me and my wife. We're trying to put food on the table and shoes on the baby's feet. And if we can't do that, and these guys are talking about they made $2 billion in Bitcoin, there's a disconnect. So
Right.
I'll end with this, which is one of my least favorite statistics is from the 2024 election. And that is 77 million people voted for Donald Trump, 75 million voted for Kamala Harris, and 89 million of our fellow citizens who are eligible to vote didn't vote at all.
Yep.
Sit with that
Yep.
number for a while.
Yep.
And there's your problem.
Yep.
That's the problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree 1,000%. Matter of fact, I think we even talked about that in one of our, I think it was the last show, as a matter of fact.
It was the last show. Yeah. We were
Yeah, it
talking.
was, what is it? It was a Cornyn that came out and said, was it 30%, Michael? 30% that are registered to vote, not
Yep.
that could vote.
Yep.
That were registered to vote, didn't
Yep.
even
They don't
bother to
care.
vote.
They're done.
They didn't
And
even
they're
bother to
tuned
vote.
out because they're not being led. They have clowns in office. It's a clown show in Washington. Every day it's a joke. It's divisive, it's nasty, it's personal, it's calling female reporters piggy, and all these things that no president has ever done or even thought about doing. This guy does 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And what it's done is it's worn people out. They're just over it and they've disconnected and they don't care.
Yeah.
It's that
Sophia, do you feel like, and this is kind of going off topic a little bit, do you feel like there's going to be a backlash if, after this president leaves office? Do you feel like there's going to be a backlash if there's say a Democratic president, that they're going to come in and try to do the same thing going in the different direction?
I talk about that in the book, and it's actually a good question because I'm tired of feeling like a yo-yo, and I think so are everyday Americans. Whether it is a far right extremist president or someone who just is not mentally competent that is in office, or it's a far left president who believes that the only way to solve things is by raising taxes and social programs, both of those are wrong. Both of those do not fit America. The backlash is those that the far right and MAGA is going to have a very difficult time, and I mean very difficult time, convincing anybody to give, excuse my language, two shits about what they think, given what they have tolerated from this guy, from the religious stuff to the personal behavior to the financial stuff to the grifting to the disrespect of the office. I can go on and on. How dare you have something to say about somebody else because you sat there and applauded this? And you said it was okay. Therein lies the problem. So the next Democrat that gets in, if he or she is not an honorable person and someone who puts the country first and says, we're not doing tit for tat, we're doing forward. If we get someone who says, well, we have 13 circuits, so we'll get 13 Supreme Court justices. Or I will do this, and this because the last guy did it. That's the danger that we fall into because Trump has been allowed, the Republicans have the control of all levers of government, all. So again, all this election rigged shit that they're talking about, with all due respect, I'm trying to figure out what election got rigged because you are in control of all the offices here. Who got rigged where? Which election got stole from you because you run the Congress, the courts, and the White House? So who stole something from you? You see what I mean? That's not even logical. But that's where we are. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree 1,000% with that. I know we've only got maybe 6 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes left.
10 minutes, we're good. We'll wrap.
So let me ask you, and I'm going to start with one. I've got kind of a follow up, but you said redefining freedom for new American century, and you laid down 4 pillars in that. Can you talk about that a little bit and why you chose those pillars and expand on that? Because I did find it very, very interesting.
Are you talking about the shared personal freedoms? Or are you just talking about the pillars of freedom?
Lived freedom, protected freedom. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I grabbed the book here because I don't remember everything verbatim that I write. It's a lot, and I wrote it a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, I think that when you talk about personal freedom, we had that discussion, right? Which is that's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is summed up in the Declaration of Independence, that each of us here has personal freedom. Shared freedom are those we share as members of a community, as members of a state, of a country, and of a republic. And those are the shared values that we talked about: patriotism, those are respect, morals, virtue, integrity, honor, abiding by the law. those are things that are supposed to be sacrosanct that we all agree to. It's like a honor code. When I was in law school in Virginia, we had to sign an honor code. And if you broke that honor code, you could be put out of law school for any number of things, speaking inappropriately to your classmate, and I'm not talking about this new school stuff. I'm talking about just good old fashioned values and the things you do and things you don't do. And then there are, individual, I mean, lived
With freedom.
experiences and
Yeah.
lived freedoms. Yeah, where those are the things that are every day, like, my right to privacy, my right to free speech, those type of things, right? And then you have collective, which again is similar to shared. It is about the community. And America has survived for 250 years because it has done what no other country has ever done. And we're the baby of the block. Europe is thousands of years old. Asia is thousands of years old. We're 250 years old. So those things matter. And I want us to get back to teaching our young people about that civic formation, that I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Those understanding what the three legislative, executive, and judicial branches do and how they work together and how they are meant to not work together to check each other. All of that has fallen by the wayside. And that's a great problem. And it's why we're where we are.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm.
Let me ask you this, because I told you I wanted to do a follow-up, because this may be the biggest question of the night. How do you feel about the next 250 years? How do you feel about the next 100? Are you are you enthusiastic about where we're at and what we've overcome? And are you enthusiastic about what we can become if we bound back together to the very things that redefine freedom?
I am an optimist always, and I believe in America and I bet for America. I never bet against that red, white, and blue. I think those colors are well chosen. I think they're vibrant. I think that we have had difficult patches of history from the beginning. When this country begins in Jamestown at 1607 as a colony, and in 1619 slavery, all the way through to the Declaration in 1776. And then you go to the Revolutionary War, then you go to the Civil War, then you go to Jim Crow, then you go to Reconstruction, then Jim Crow, the Civil Rights Acts. My point is, we have always evolved into a more perfect union. That's the good news. And that's the news that I hope will continue. How do I feel about the next 5 years is really the question you need to ask me. Because until we can get the next 5 years under control, I am very concerned about where I see us headed, because one, we have civic disengagement at a very dangerous level, as we all just pointed out in the numbers. But we also have and Teddy Roosevelt was the trust buster, and he was from a wealthy New York family. And he beat the hell out of the JP Morgans and those guys because he understood that if you let six dudes that had all the money and all the wealth and all the power run the country, you had a problem, because it wasn't a country by and for and of the people. And so I think that we're going to have to resolve this question in the next election. Um, the Democrats better win or they
The
got problems.
midterms.
Because if
Yeah, the
they can't
midterms.
win in this environment, I don't know what to say about them. I don't
Right.
know about the Senate yet. I think that one's still too close to call. I think it just depends on what kind of mood the voters are in. But I do think Trump's behavior every day is starting to. I have neighbors that are MAGA. They took their flags down. They're not liking him anymore because they feel like he's off his rocker. They see him falling asleep. They see the vitriolic nastiness, the personal barbs, and nobody wants to hear that. People work hard. People don't have time for that. They don't want their president to conduct himself that way. They don't want to see your president taking a Qatari jet and flying around in it and calling it Air Force One.
Yeah.
I think people have had enough. It's going to just be interesting to see how enough they've had.
Yeah.
Last comments, Michael. We're out of time. Anything you want to add here?
No, it just, Sophia nailed it. I think the wonderful vivid description or imagery for me was seeing the Obama library open and seeing people on the grounds, and then seeing the president, in front of his red, white, and blue jet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And knowing it, I just saw, and that going to his presidential library, I thought, okay, that if that doesn't tell the story, nothing else will.
Yep.
And I think when that Obama library opened, and what I loved, and I was very open about this on my social media, I love the George Bush, Michelle Obama relationship. And I wish they'd do a podcast and go on a tour around this country, literally together, and say, we couldn't be more different in our politics, but we really like each other as people. We socialize, we're friendly, we support each other. Michelle's new book, Becoming, was coming out when Daddy Bush passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And she was supposed to be in Europe opening up her book tour, and she canceled it. She said, no, I need to be here. I want to pay my respects to President Herbert Walker, and George is my friend. That's who we used to be. If you go look at all the pictures going back to the Nixon Library and forward, everybody showed up. They supported, they applauded. Clinton beat Daddy Bush. I worked for Daddy Bush in that campaign. I was 21 years old, something like that. And Clinton and the Bushes became like brothers after that. Like, we don't have to agree, but we can be civil and decent and kind
Yep.
and friends. And that's
Yep.
what I loved about the Obama library. It brought people together. Everybody was dancing, singing, having a good time, whatever your political stripe was. And then we come to this guy, and it's, they stole the election. I'm pardoning people. I made $1 billion. Oh, I don't care about affordability. That has nothing to do with me. I'll blow Iran out the water. It's every day. People
It
just
is.
don't want
Every
they
day.
don't.
It
Yeah.
is every day, and hopefully we can come and be a better country. But I'm with you. I think that this will be the most important election coming up in midterms, and it certainly in my lifetime.
I agree.
So, everybody, a couple of things here. Please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. If you're watching this right now, you're watching it on YouTube. Yes, we are going to go and broadcast starting next week, everywhere on every major social media platform. But for right now, please like it. If you've got a message for Sophia, leave her a message. We'll read it out on air. If you've got a comment, we'll do that. I just want to put up real quickly too, this is her book. It's Redefining Freedom. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on all major booksellers. It's very good. I've read it. I really, really enjoyed it. And incidentally, I've also read Becoming, and that's a very good book too. If you haven't
Good for
read it, it's
you.
very good.
That's
Yeah.
good. I thought
So
that was a girl book, but it's good. I like that you
no,
read it.
I think her perspectives on what life was like, right,
Yeah.
from a wife of a president, and
Mhm.
just it's a good book. I mean,
It is a good
it
book.
is a good book. Thanks, Michael, for joining us. Sophia, thanks so much, my friend. It's been a wonderful time. Everybody, go enjoy yourself. Have a wonderful, wonderful 4th of July. Celebrate 250 years for this great American experiment, and we will see you again on Monday. Thank you, Sophia.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Michael.
guys.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much. The No Bull Political Arena is on all major social media platforms. Make sure to give us and your host a follow.
Hey everybody, this is Sophia Nelson. Follow me at I am Sophia Nelson on every one of my social media platforms.
I'm Bill O'Reilly, and you can reach me at Twitter at WFBOR.
Hey, this is TJ. Follow me on X or Twitter at TJ McCormack.
This is Brian Mistro, and you can follow me on X at Brian_Mistro, or follow along on Facebook at Brian.Mistro.
A No Bull Media Group member.